Right, there we are.
And we're on.
Okay.
Hello, Moniste.
Hello, Isa. So, hello, Human Design Wisconsin. Excited to have you guys here and our guest speaker, Isa. And she'll kind of get into a little bit more information about herself as she goes through the content that she's going to be reviewing. And the topic today is 2027 Trust Yourself. So, we'll talk a little bit about global cycle changes, and that's super exciting to me. I'm looking forward to learning along with the rest of you. So, if you have any questions or concerns with connectivity or anything like that, please let us know as we go. And Isa, you said that you'll take questions as you go through as well. Like people don't have to wait till the end, right?
I don't think that's going to work, to be honest. I
Oh,
think
okay,
I do need to wait till the end. The
okay,
content added up, but I am going to take a little bathroom break in the middle of it. So maybe that would be a time if there are questions before that we could work those in.
okay.
Yeah.
That's fair. So, just to recap, hold your questions till later. And we will save time for questions at the end for sure.
Hmm.
But basically, I'll just review her information. Um, and before we wrap up, right now we're scheduled for 90 minutes. I want to take a few minutes at the end of the call just to remind you of some upcoming events for the Human Design Wisconsin group and some other exciting things that are happening. But for right now, glad to have you here, and I will hand it over to Isa.
Okay, thank you, Moniste. I'd like to ask everyone to go ahead and mute your mics on your end. I think I can do it here. Oh, maybe I can. Let me try that. Ha, I gotcha. All right, cool. Okay, so confirmation on my audio. Yeah, okay. So welcome. I've made this presentation for people who are brand new to human design and anybody else who wants to listen. And a quick introduction via my body graph and a recent picture. This was taken at the bus stop like 2 weeks ago when I was on my way to the immigration office in La Paz. And I'm a permanent resident of Mexico. Apparently, my card isn't in my hand yet, but it's apparently on its way. And you can see from my body graph there, the simplest things. I'm a 6-2 profile. I have splenic authority. I'm here to be intuitive, but I do a lot of thinking, and I sometimes say shocking things. And I'm not trying to shock you today, but this is shocking information if you haven't heard of it before. And that's why I'm using this disclaimer here. And this was one that Raw used. There is no reason you need to trust me or believe anything I have to say here. Everything about human design, you can learn this stuff for yourself. And I've first was exposed to this knowledge about 6 years ago, and so I'm going to introduce it as knowledge that I have learned and validated for myself, um, so that you can do the same if you need to do that. So here's our itinerary. It looks kind of long. We are going to have a bathroom break, and the uh, the time to ask questions would be that bathroom break, and then again at the end. Okay, let's see here. And then I will be providing my contact information and so forth, so you can contact me. I'm going to introduce myself professionally first. I am, by profession now, a living your design guide. That means that I went to the International Human Design School, which was the one that Ra founded and the only one that Ra founded. And it's not the only way to learn about human design, and it's certainly not necessary for living your design. However, as I'm going to try to emphasize, human design is a mechanical system. You can test little bits of it for yourself, and then you can start seeing the bigger picture of it. And I have this tendency, it's in my design for details and systems, not like systems like a projector, but systems like how to build an anchor for climbing a mountain or how to fix a sail on a sailboat, those kinds of things. And that kind of mechanical integrity is something that I find more in people who have been through the school. So somehow that all happened, and I'm a guide. I'm not an analyst. An analyst goes to school for at least 2 more years than I have. The information that I'm going to be sharing today, a lot of it is from the analyst level. But what I'm trying to do is bring it down to the newbie level, because 2027 is only 5 years away. And I haven't seen anybody else bring it down to where I'm going to speak from it. So slide from Moniste, we know that this basic fact, there's a 412-year cycle ending in 5 years. But what does that even mean? So some context for that is here. And this is what, a 20,000 year schedule? And in fact, the graphic is not very clear. And in fact, none of my graphics are very good. It's not my skill, okay? Maybe there's a projector or a generator out there who's gonna help me with better slide presentations someday. But in any case, the mechanical calendar system of human design goes throughout, we can say, the history of humanity. Yeah, there's been humans on the planet all this time. And specifically, we're looking here at this cycle that is ending in 2027. It started in 1615. So basically, all of humanity that you and I can possibly like contemplate has been here with the background frequency of the cross of planning. And that's what I'm going to get into later today, not too long from now. But if you think about it, can you even imagine what a human was like in 1300 or in 1400 or even in 1500? Like, what did they have in common with us? Well, really, very, very little, actually. And yet we're coming to this crossover point where, well, it's not so pretty for humanity what's coming. So I'm going to summarize this in a 1, 2, 3. Like if you leave the presentation after I'm done with this, you know all you need to know, basically. So 1, there's a cycle change. To get some sense of what this means, think about all those civilizations that failed, like the Romans and the Mayans, and they had all these great things going on. Where did they go? What happened? Well, cycle changes. Changes in the background frequency didn't continue to support what was happening to them. So that's one thing you could think about. And in fact, I just heard this. I was hearing this scientific explanation from like Nature magazine about what happened to the Mayans. And they said, science now shows there was a climate change issue, that led to the breakdown of the Mayan civilization. And there was political instability. And there were changes in XYZ, all these things that are happening right now, climate change, political instability. We think there's no explanation for that. Well, I'm giving you a really big picture explanation for why things change for humans. The next thing I'll talk about much more briefly, because I'm no expert, but we're going to talk about a new kind of quote unquote human that's coming, and it's called a Rave, and it has to do with a genetic mutation that is going to be appearing in some humans and not other. So we'll get there. So what are you going to do about it? Like everything's going to change, or this background frequency is going to change, and these new kind of alien kind of people are going to be born. Well, you really can't do anything about it. The only thing you can do is live as yourself. You can't figure it out with your mind, but you can sail your own boat. And that's a metaphor I'm going to use a lot, and then I'm going to change the metaphor at the end of the presentation. So you are in one of these 4 kinds of boats. You are either inside of a repelling and closed aura like mine. You're perhaps in an open and enveloping aura like 70% of the planet. You might have a probing, get to know kind of aura of the projector, or you might have this sampling aura of the reflector. In any case, none of these boats sail in a similar way to each other. If you're a manifester, you're like a big boat in a small harbor, and everywhere you move, you're going to make a wake. If you're a projector, you're more like a canoe that can like poke around the whole harbor, and yet you're not welcome where you're not welcome. So the problem that maybe you've been able to deal with because of what's the background frequency has allowed this, if you haven't been sailing your boat correctly, it's going to get a lot worse in your ability to navigate in the future. Okay, I'm going to type a comment there. Okay, so you are in one of these 4 types of boats. And the way to sail your boat is according to your strategy. So if you are a projector, your strategy is to wait until you're invited. If you're a reflector, your strategy is to wait a while, wait, be initiated, and then wait for your authority. But your aura cannot work properly if you're not sailing your boat as it was designed. Okay, that's the end. That's all you really have to know, truly. But I'm going to give you a bunch more data to freak you out. So if you want to hear Ra talking about this topic, you should go to the Jovian Archive YouTube channel and look for this event, 2020, or this presentation. He gave this in 2010, and I listened to it recently getting ready for this. And the tone that Ra shares here is something to really hear, okay? But it's not my tone, it's not my frequency. He's a 5th line manifester, I'm a 6th line manifester. We've got these differences. And when I listened to it recently, what I realized was that I've heard it 3 or 4 times and I heard something new, really. But the thing is that what he's saying there, it assumes knowledge that newbies aren't going to have. So you can hear it and go, wow, that guy's a wacko. Like he sounds like the sky is falling. Okay. Now I'm going to explain to you like details about the sky falling. And I'm going to do it by speaking really personally about my own experience with human design and how I came to know this stuff. And I call it stuff in part because Ra called it stuff, because knowledge is stuff. But the knowledge isn't necessarily what you need to sail as you, okay? There's all these details you can learn about human design, but it really gets down to whether or not you're sailing your own boat and whether you're validating it as true, because it's not here to be disbelieved, okay? So, brief history of me. Here I am, around 5 years old. My family life stabilized with the addition of a stepfather at that time. This is in Portland, Oregon. And I had a pretty nice middle class life that involved things like horses, and I was a super academic, outdoorsy girl. And I got really into plants and animals when I was in high school, and basically I knew I was going to go to law school and I was going to become an environmental lawyer and I was going to save the world. And I'm going to come back to this image because what I see in this image is really different now than what I used to see. But I'm sharing it to let you know that I was motivated in my academicness and in my destination of law school because I thought that these groups were going to do the things that I needed to be part of to save the world. And who was I saving the world from but other humans, really? So eventually I got married. This man supported me through law school. We're not married now. And we did things like fishing and backcountry skiing and lived at the base of a beautiful mountain and had a law career. And then, like all relationships, it had an end date. And towards the end, I got into sailing. And here I am on the first day of owning my own sailboat and the beginning of me using sailing metaphors. And I did learn how to sail this boat on my own. I lived in it for a couple years. And around the end of 2015, I realized that I wasn't sure the United States was for me, and I wasn't sure that I wanted to be a lawyer forever, and sold the boat, put the law career in a closet, and went off to the Caribbean and said, I'm going to sail around and figure out, my life. And I ended up in Costa Rica and did all the Costa Rica kind of things, adopted a dog, did some psychedelic medicines and things like that. And I met human design there, and they were all wrapped up. And so, wow, what is this? Let me take a sip of my. So this body graph, 6 years later, I can say, I understand it to show a map of my nature, my genetic map of my nature, which is intuitive and spontaneous and involves a lot of thinking, but those two aren't necessarily connected. I also got to understand in studying this and since then that I have been nurtured to do things that weren't really me for my whole life, including seeking direction and proving my worth and avoiding truth and not knowing when enough is enough. And that conditioning came from parents and partners and food and culture. So I'm going to show you some charts and show you, hey, look, I grew up with a mother who had a defined ego. She was there. She is here to prove herself on the material plane. I'm not. That's my open ego on the left there. And she has a consistent, identity and direction in her defined G center, and I don't. And so it's really been a process of going, wow, I'm not that. I'm not my mom. I grew up thinking I am like the next level of her and of my parents, but no, I'm actually not. Look at, there's my stepfather. He's got a defined sacral, effectively unlimited energy as a generator, right? If you're doing it in response, the sacral power is always there. But there I was with my open sacral, amplifying it. So they all thought I was the hardest worker ever. Well, that's because I was amplifying their sacral energy. And so, yeah, here I am now, 4 to 6 years into my experiment. And I'm just finally getting comfortable with the fact that I'm not going to have consistent identity and direction or willpower. And I'm not here to work. And some of the biggest deconditioning happens on a mechanical level, and sleep and food, i.e., sleeping alone and eating by my PHS. And that's why I say 4 to 6 years, because I don't really know where to drop the pin about when I actually entered the experiment, because I learned about human design in April 2016. But I can't say that my life really changed a lot. I was already in this very adventurous mode, having left all that stuff. But I can say there were some decisions that, well, anyway, here's where I can definitely drop the pin, was when I started eating by my PHS style, because my life had to change. I had to stop eating with other people, basically. And that kind of isolation and kind of leaving culture, it not only changed my body dramatically, but it also helped me see how I was being conditioned while I was eating. So here I am, not 7 years into my experiment at all, not at all 7 years in, but somewhere around there. So another thing I got to learn about was that, hey, looking at my ex-husband's chart, gosh, we're really similar, and we even kind of look similar in this picture. But hey, check it out, we have the same incarnation cross. And this is getting into kind of deeper levels of human design, but you've probably all heard of it. Like Ra was a left angle cross of the Clarion. And I don't know any of your crosses, so I can't name any of them, but you have this idea that there's this cross out there. Well, studying his chart versus mine helps me understand the differences within one single incarnation cross. And this image right here, I think I've got more of it over here. So here we go. There's that incarnation cross comes from the design Sun Earth and the personality Sun Earth. So my ex-husband, myself, and Ra are all the same incarnation cross, but we are different types. Cody was a generator, and different lines. For example, I'm a 6'2", Cody was a 5'2", Ra was a 5'1". So by learning about the body graph and then studying charts of people in my life, I got to see, this is really a science. And you can really validate this. You can, once you start looking at things, you go, wow, that's a 5th line frequency versus a 6th line frequency. And there is a difference. And really helped me see that astrology is nothing like, or even barely, not even related to human design, because you can't verify astrology in the systematic way that you can verify human design. The details aren't there. So that was my experience there. And I did it in under 20 minutes. So I'm going to take a little pause and sip some water. If anybody wants to, let's see, I can take a question now. If anybody would like to type into the chat, or maybe I can unmute you. Or maybe I'm just going to keep rolling right along. Does that sound okay? We're just going to skip the potty break? Okay, cool. Okay, here we go into global cycles. So the reason I'm mentioning that I'm a Clarion is that a global cycle is like an incarnation cross for the entire globe. That's really the best way to say it. And what that involves is, for me personally, it involves my personality Sun in gate of 51, the gate of shock, and my personality Earth, and the 57, which is the grounding force for my 57, which is the gate of the gentle. And then there's this unconscious side of me, my design sun being in 61, the inner mystery. And that's grounded over here in details. So part of what I found in this was why we were, Cody and I, able to do things like rock climbing and mountaineering and river trips and all this really kind of technical gearsy stuff, because our bodies were both grounded in these kind of details, the 62 here. And it's part of my appreciation of the human design system that you can test it this way. So much of what I'm about to say sounds so wacko. Really, it sounds so far out there. But the way I see it now is that the kind of mechanical knowledge you have and respect that you have to have for systems in order to survive a mountaineering trip, for example. You can't screw up on your knots. You can't use the wrong gear. You can't make bad decisions and expect to survive a mountaineering situation or a sailing situation. So I naturally navigated to somebody else who had a sense of, we've got to get the details right to survive this stuff. Okay, so that's part of what I'm pointing out with this. So what we have going on for the last 400 and something years is an incarnation cross called a global cycle, called the cross of planning. I'm curious if anybody here is a cross of planning, if anybody wants to say anything. But anyway, you can meet people like this, right? I mean, there are people on the planet right now that are cross of planning people. And what does that look like? We're going to talk about this because this is like the incarnation of the whole globe. It's this background sense for everyone on the planet. And it has to do with bargains and agreements and logic and details and science. Those are all things that come out of this frequency in the cross of planning. And in human design keynote language, we say that's about support and it's about sharing. And if I go back to, again, this personal relationship, we had electromagnetics around support and sharing. That made sense. We were very individual in our own frequencies, but our electromagnetics were about support and sharing. So that makes a good relationship. That makes, economic compatibility and combined blah, blah. And I'm going to just step away for a sec because the dog is asking to be let outside. And if you think manifestors are really in charge of what they're doing, just watch a manifestor with a dog and you learn that we don't really get to choose this stuff either. Okay, so I want to break down the cross of planning. What you see in this image is there's a channel between these gates and these centers, right? This is the ego center about proving on the material plane, and the emotional center here, gate 37, gate 40, that's a channel. And then there's two other hanging gates over here. So this channel is the supportive channel, and it's a channel, it's supportive, right? And those hanging gates are about details and skills, and those support sharing between people. So if we were to describe the background frequency for all of humanity in the last 400 years, the song playing in the sky that has infiltrated everybody's lives has been support and share and share. So what does that really play out as? So it's the channel of community, for what that's worth, and it's two motors. And here's what I want to talk about. These bargains, this support, this channel of community makes bargains that make everything that we understand about normal life possible. There's somebody growing food. They're making deals with people that are going to harvest the food. They're making deals with people that are going to distribute the food. They're making deals with people that are going to cook the food and store it and all these kinds of things, right? How many deals between the shaft of wheat in the field in Kansas or Kazakhstan and your breakfast table are there. There's a lot of deals, a lot of bargains. And we assume that that's just what humans do. We make bargains and we all get some money for it, right? And we all have a better life because the wheat gets to the table. But the background frequency that supported that happening is going away. That, by the way, didn't exist, in the 1300s. Humanity, I don't know, there have been other eras with the cross of planning, but the people before 1600 didn't understand that the way you get a better life is to make deals with other people because you can't do everything yourself. But that's what we've been benefiting from, is a bunch of deals. Plus, we've been benefiting from an evolution in science that allows us to, have surgeries and, in vitro fertilization and hospitals and schools and all these things, all these systems that have made humanity so advanced. They're supported also by this other gate 9 and gate 16 about sharing. So details are important. Like I said, details, like in sailing and climbing, details are important. You use the wrong piece of gear, you might fall off the boat, and then you're gone. And then there's sharing. Logical skills. We've got people that are willing to teach people how to do things. How do you learn a new language, and how do you drive a car, and how do you operate this factory machinery? Skills are awesome. So we've had all of these things going on. So here's an example. And by the way, this language is Ra's language, if I have it in quotes and italicized here. So public schools, this is like a homogenizing force for all of us. We all assume in America and in Northern Europe and much of Asia that you have schools that teach you how to do things, and we all understand that it's important to write your name in a certain way and spell the words in certain ways and all this kind of stuff. But that's not intrinsic to humanity. That is coming to an end. So the cross of planning, in summary, has been about support and sharing. That has been humanity's thing, the overriding theme of what humans have been doing for the past 400 years. And we assume that it's true and that humans are supposed to be this way, the way that we assume that the grass is green and the sky is blue. It's just, yeah, that's what people do, right? Well, after 2027, that frequency won't be available to support those bargains and those public institutions. The next one is going to be about self-empowerment. And empowerment, i.e. what I'm doing right now as an individual, I'm putting out an empowering frequency, and there will be a little support. So we're going to look at this incarnation cross, this next global cycle, with a little more detail. But basically, it's as different as saying the grass is purple and the sky is pink. And it's not like on a date, and I think the date is basically February 2027, but I don't have that detail for you. But it's not like we're going to wake up and everybody all of a sudden is going to see purple grass and pink sky. It's going to be a slow fade like a sunset. But in 100 years from now, nobody is going to assume that grass is green and sky is blue. They're going to see purple grass. And we get to watch that. So the incoming global background frequency is about being busy. What you see in this incarnation cross here, this cross of the sleeping phoenix, it's called, is you're seeing the sacral center directly connected to the throat. Maybe you even know some sleeping phoenix people. They're busy, they're busy, they're busy, they're materialistic, and they can kind of get into you because, well, we'll talk about that in a sec. So it's not going to be about we're all going to school together and supporting each other and learning. It's going to be about taking care of yourself and one night stands. I'll get into that detail in a minute. So sleeping phoenix people, start paying attention to them. How do they operate? Because this is the incoming frequency. This is Ra saying that they're the busiest people in the world. And it's not necessarily easy to deal with people that are super, super busy. Kurt Cobain was a sleeping phoenix, by the way. Earlier this week, I had this rash of Nirvana, like a Nirvana binge, and then I realized, oh, look, I'm studying the cross of the sleeping phoenix, and that's him. So To break it down, there is a channel. See, it's this channel here, and then 2 hanging gates. So that channel is about self-empowerment. It's not even about empowerment, which is what individuals do. This is about self-empowerment. This is, I'm busy now for me. Now, it doesn't mean I hate you, but it does mean I'm busy now for me right now, is what that means. And then we'll have this gate 55, which is an empowerment thing. It has to do with the materiality, abundance, and spirit. And then we'll have one tribal gate that's about support, and it's through sexuality. Not necessarily sexuality, but the idea of a productive, reproductive sort of push. So to break down these channels, the channel of charisma, a design where thoughts must become deeds. The 2 people that come to mind right now are Russell Brand and, oh, wait a minute, there's a bunch more coming. Russell Brand, Kurt Cobain, Dave Chappelle, and Miley Cyrus all come to mind. They all have the 3420. Okay. And yeah, they're busy. They're, being performers. They're on it now. I have energy now. They're manifesting generators, right? So it's a manifesting generator kind of vibe. Okay, that's going to be the background frequency. And then there's these 2 other gates that are contributing to that cross, and we're going to enter those on the 6th line. So the gate 55, regarding abundance and spirit, we're going to enter it on the 6th line, which is called selfishness. So we're going into a selfish kind of materialistic future, which is not evil, but it's not about sharing. It's not about we should all donate to something so that that person over there can have something that they need. It's more about I can make this really cool thing and I can sell it. Yeah, that's materialism. And all our moral judgments against materialism need to go out the window because they're not going to survive. But it doesn't mean that, yeah, there could be some meanness in there. That's the other side of the 6th line. So I'm a 6th line personality. I can be aware of this kind of, okay, we're kind of role models, but we can be total hypocrites. That 6th line thing is going to be there. And the gate 59, this is the only tribal gate in that cross. And so it does have a potential of support, or it is a supportive force. But this is the one night stand. This is like role model intimacy. This is not about the marriage bargain. We've, in the last 400 years, have had this economic unit and this basis of society that is the marriage bargain. I'm going to commit myself to you, you to me, and we are going to have more because we combine our stuff, and there's going to be a stability in that, and everyone's going to win because we're married. It's the opposite. The kind of support that's going to happen is going to be, okay, I'm supporting you tonight, and no commitments beyond there. So that's a really different scene. That's pink sky and purple grass. So that's another element that you might want to consider, and this is something you can research and figure out for yourself. We've been in the first line of the cross of planning. When I break down the current global cycle, it's these gates at these lines, okay? But we're going into a 6th line frequency. So one of the ways you can check this out for yourself is notice your first line friends, like your 1-3 friends or your 1-4 friends, and then look at your 6th line friends. I'm a 6th line personality, and yeah, they're different. They really are. And so you can even be watching the transits, and you can notice, oh, there's a 1st line day, there's a 6th line day. They're different. Yeah, 6th line is a little freaky, a little unpredictable. But yeah, it's not as concerned about details, and it's not investigative and foundational like the 1st line is. It's more like, yeah, I don't know how to describe that better at the moment. So here's the summary. The last 400 years of humanity, support and share and sharing. The next 400 or so years, self-empowerment, and some support in a sixth line kind of way. Sympathy and apathy, those are keynotes for the sixth line way. The sixth line can be sympathetic and then apathetic and go back and forth between them. And I see it in myself all of the time. I can be sympathetic and then I just don't care. And I can't change that. That's just part of how my personality does things. So there's going to be a lot more of that in the coming years. And now we're on the final stretch. I'm going to take a sip of my Mexican Coca-Cola. Okay, we're going to talk about raves briefly. Assuming you go listen to Ra's last 2027 major presentation that's on Jovian Archive YouTube, you will hear Ra do kind of what I just did, like, I don't want to talk about this. So what's technically happening, and I can't prove this to you, right? I can only say I've studied this much human design, and everything I've been able to test, I've tested and been able to observe it. And Ra was told this was going to happen. He got this information from beyond himself, and he had to deliver it. And I am no expert on this particular thing, but what's happening is a genetic mutation in the solar plexus. And it's going to take away the relationship between the gate 19 and gate 49. Right now, actually, we are in a transit of 1949. I think we're still here. And that is going to break down another level of tribal support. That's a tribal channel. But it's also going to result in, for the people that are carrying or expressing this mutation, and not all the babies born will, and I don't know what percentage are going to be exhibiting this. I wish I did, but there's just a lot I don't know about this. But here's what I know for sure, based on what Ra says. They're going to be traumatic to their parents because they're not going to be able to communicate in any way that we are able to communicate with them. Their wiring is simply going to be different. You can kind of compare it to maybe a Down syndrome person, but not really, because we can communicate with them with words, okay? But we won't be communicating with Raves in words. Their bodies are not going to be Adonis bodies. They're going to be different. And it's really likely they're going to be institutionalized. And Ra described it as the kind of trauma to the parents is going to be like what parents experience when their children are severely autistic. Like, what do you do with severely autistic child? I'm no expert on that. And I'm not even sure if the autistic children and the parents who are experienced with them are going to be helpful in this, because it's literally not human, really, in this sense. I'll take back not human, but understand that we are nine-centered. We are Homo sapiens intransitus. We are not the Homo sapiens that were alive that were being born in 1770. In 1781, there was a genetic mutation because humans are continuing to evolve. We used to be five-centered Neanderthals, right? And then some other things happened. And then, whoa, in 1781, genetic mutation to nine-centered. So we are all nine-centered now. And for example, that mutation also was what created projectors. Projectors didn't exist before 1781. And I, for one, am glad projectors are here. They're awesome. But they're like aliens on this planet because there's no history of projectors being here. There's no history of people being like that in humanity before then. And only us weird people in human design are aware of this. So understand that this progression right here, this started forever ago, basically. There's a continuing evolution of humans, okay? That's what this is part of. And here's a mention that the channel that we're losing, the 1949 channel, it's a tribal channel also. And this tribal channel, look, I have no doubt that this tribal channel brought us together in this conversation right now. Look, we're all in this together in my broadcast. And this is a sense that we have, like we can all come together and support each other by being together. That's what the 1949 helps us with, but it's not going to be here any longer. The people who are currently carrying the 1949 channel will still carry it, so get to know them. But nobody else is ever going to be born with that. And in 100 years, there won't be anybody left who has it. So speaking of 7-centered to 9-centered, there's no future in collective saving. This sense that I had when I was young, that if I just do my work in school and get that law degree, I'm going to help solve the problem and keep the people together and save the animals and save the plants. That isn't going to be happening 50 years from now. And you can already see it breaking down, right? You can already see how things like the shipping systems are breaking down, right? Like, look what happened in Canada with the the truckers and their protest. And look what's happening at the shipping ports and the backlog and how shipping is getting stuck. And the freight train system in the United States of America is falling apart and about to go on strike, and literally the rails are melting. So all this collective stuff that used to happen and all these deals that used to happen and all the ability of the collective to save us, that's all going away. So us 9-centered humans, what we can do is we can save ourselves. And the only way you can do that is by your own authority. And the only way your inner authority is going to get to act is if you don't pretend to be somebody that you're not. Don't pretend to be another type. Don't pretend to be a generator. If you are a manifester, that's what I did for most of my life. So one way I can describe this is that your boat, you've got to sail it as if there's nobody to save you, right? There's no Coast Guard. The Coast Guard is a collective thing, right? You don't have to have a relationship with the Coast Guard to save you. There's, a tax system, and there's this belief in the government that, oh, if there's a distressed boat out there, we're going to go save them. Nope, that's not going to be around. So sail your boat by your strategy. That's going to protect you. And then your inner authority is going to guide you. That's the way that it's going to happen. And speaking of boat metaphors and this process of deconditioning, I have not been by nature a humble person. And especially this picture shows this. I'm sailing in the Columbia River Gorge. It's one of the gnarliest places you could sail a boat, and I learned it. And that town was full of like adrenaline seeking, proving people. And open G me and open ego me. I was right in there proving myself with how I could sail a boat. And I got to the point where I could really do it. I'm tacking a boat by myself with my hands. I'm wearing a freaking skirt. I mean, I was like, yeah, I can do this. Okay. So I've even had this idea about, well, this sort of attitude at times in my human design experiment. And then something like this happens on the right. I'm riding my bike one morning and I just freaking got smashed. My pelvis was fractured, my right femur here into 5 pieces. And guess what? The collective picked me up. Volunteer ambulance got me to the hospital. But that was a bad move, So that was a really humbling experience to see who took care of me during that time. And then to think that, I don't know if 10 years from now, I don't know if people are going to leave their houses as volunteers to go pick up people who do stupid things like me. I wouldn't count on it. So the other thing I want to say about that is that as much as I know that I can give this presentation, as much knowledge as I have, I'm nowhere near even the first 7-year deconditioning cycle. And that's kind of the basics for getting it out of your system, the conditioning that tried to make you into something that you're not. And that has entered you through your open centers and your splits from the first breath you took. So don't underestimate that it's really is a 7-year first cycle. And let me point this out. If you start noticing people who've been in human design for more than 7 years, they're the ones who are the quietest and the humblest, usually. And because they've gotten to a point where they realize that they're not really in control and that you really can't do anything to save people. You can just do what you can do in the moment for the people that show up. So here's me learning about my boat. I'm resigned to this, and I sigh a little bit, but it's also cool. I mean, I'm cool with this now. I need to watch out about not trying to work, and I need to not be proving myself, and I need to not worry about my lack of consistent identity, and I need to watch out for the insights and opinions that would condition me through my split. And what I can do is I can move instinctively and trust my instincts because that's what my splenic authority is about. And I can know that I am going to serve others by just being me. My impact is going to happen. I can't avoid having impact on people as a manifester. And my mutative thinking could be helpful too if it's called out like Moniste called me out to present this today. So there's my boat. And yet I want to point out that the attitude I had in this picture is not the one that I have now because of things like this accident here, right? So I'm going to drop the sailing metaphor and just say, there's nowhere you have to go. You don't have to sail your boat to any particular destination. Your magnetic monopole is already taking you where you're going to go. And so you could adopt a more gentle thing. So I'm going to adopt this more gentle song. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. See, there's some effort. You have to row a little bit, even if you're a no motor reflector or projector, you still got to row a little bit, but you're going down the stream and gently. There's nowhere to hurry to. And I know it's not all merry, okay? So I say merrily, verily, humbly, gratefully, life is but a dream. This is the mechanics of the Maya that I've been talking about. And so there's my new theme song. And we are now at the end of the tour. I have been your tour guide. And you can contact me at these places. You can learn more about things I say about human design by going to YouTube, Neutrino Cafe. And if you want to go on an 8-week tour, I'm going to have one starting on September 1st. And you can learn more about that on the website. And I'm done talking. Yay, I'd like to. Moniste, are you able to unmute yourself? Yes, you are.
Yes, thank you so much for that. I really appreciate it. I would like to open up for questions. And then before we wrap up, I kind of want to go back to your offerings again, just to like kind of explain that a little bit more, because it took me a bit to understand what it is, and it's something that I'm considering, and I'd like others to be aware of that also. But let's open it up for questions, whether it be anything that Isa has talked about today. Um, let's start off with that. I think it was really really great information. Thank you for sharing that. Oop, you're on mute though, Isa.
Okay, let me mention that this is recorded, so it'll be on your group's website. It'll be on the Neutrino Cafe YouTube page also as a live event, and so you're welcome to share it. Yeah. And I can buzz back through some slides if anybody wants me to do that.
So
did I give all the details?
everyone's speechless.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
That was wild, and like I'm a sleeping phoenix, and like I've seen a lot of this stuff like coming up. I don't know, like it just confirms a lot of things that I've found through Western astrology and just like paying attention to the world and stuff. Like it's like the old system has to die before a new one starts.
Exactly.
And it's just like the writing is like clear on the wall for me. I'm like trying to shake my relatives and friends and stuff. I'm like, it's not gonna work like this anymore. And then there's this Western astrology transit. It's in 2027, so around the time that you were talking about, and it's when Saturn and Pluto will be square in the signs of money and the collective, Taurus and Aquarius. So that's
Mm-hmm.
like, that points to a radical change in like creating value, how you financially like do things. It's like not having the same money, maybe,
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that. It's like everything is morphing. And that's sort of like when it'll come to a head is like 27 or 2027, 2028. So it confirms a lot of things that I've been looking into, which is wild.
Excellent. Nice to hear from you, Adam.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you for doing the presentation.
You're welcome.
I'm gonna mute myself now.
Mm-hmm.
While the group is kind of processing some of the information, I would just like to point out, and you've mentioned this partially too, but I want to point it out again, that the changes that are coming, it's not going to be, from my understanding, it's not going to be like a light switch flips on or off, right? It's things that have been building for a long time now, and they will continue to do that. So it's not like, like for those of you that were around, older, maybe not babies, when it was 1999 and the clock was
Mm-hmm.
going to strike midnight and it was going to be 2000 and everybody was worried about Y2K and everything crashing and things like, it's not going to be like that. It's more of a gradual.
And here's some examples. So we were talking about, or Ra was talking about how the institutions like schooling, we all have the standardized schooling. Well, look what happened in the last 2 years. Public school in the United States, in most of the world, went totally weird because of COVID, right? You had online learning and these inconsistent schedules, and basically there's no regular, like, we go to school in September and we get done in June. That's never coming back. That's an example of the frequency supporting that kind of schooling going away.
I see Christina typed in the chat. How are people with a seemingly collective incarnation cross, or at least a cross that has to do with servicing other people, supposed to take this information?
You know what? Hold on. My goodness. Thank you for saying that. I was not getting the full chat here. Okay, so now I can go to this chat. Okay, sorry about that. I'm sorry. So the question is, if somebody has collective channels in their own body graph, could you repeat that?
Yeah. So people that have more of a collective incarnation cross, or a cross that has to
I
do with
see it.
servicing other people, how are they
Yeah.
supposed to process or take that information?
You are going to be carrying it, okay? And all these collective, everybody's design is going to stay the same. So our own design is going to stay the same, but there won't be any new people born with the 1949, for example. And so, yeah, right now I'm an individual with no collective definition. So I'm not a sharer, even though I have collective gates. I don't have a life force of sharing, okay? I'm the weirdo because I'm the individual, and I'm gonna be like more like the background frequency. So in the way that I stick out as an individual now, the collective people might stick out a little bit more, but the scale of that, I'm not sure. But a 10-year-old with collective channels right now, who's gonna be 70 years old, they might notice that they stand out because they're into sharing and they're not as self empowering the way that other people are.
Thanks
Okay, yeah. Okay, I'm gonna spin through there too. Let's see. Okay, yeah.
I think that's the last question in the chat right now.
Okay, cool.
I have a question of my own though. So it sounds kind of like a little bit to me doom and gloomish, like all the systems are going away and everything. But so does that mean, like, what about smaller group support, like families sticking together, helping each other kind of thing, versus like government doing it? Or, you know what I mean? Friends
I do. So, look at families now compared to 100 years ago. 100 years ago, no woman was alive without a family. Okay, there was no material support. There was no collective system that would allow a woman like me to live in an apartment and live on my own, right? But now I can. But 100 years from now, so that's the kind of difference we're talking about. So it's not that the individuals who want to be in families aren't going to be in families. You know, like if I meet somebody who has a gate 40 and I've got my 37, we're going to have the electromagnetic of community, and I don't remember if that's the marriage one, but it's like a deal making, you know, bond. So that can still happen, but we're not going to have a culture based on the family or marriage. Right now, the family is the unit for making things happen, right? And it's just not going to be the unit anymore. You can look at Asia, for example, and all the little boxes that people live in, you know, like the more separated future.
Okay. All right. I'm still processing that. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And by the way, I'm still processing too. Like I said, I'm only, say, 6 years into the knowledge, maybe 4 years into the experiment. And I've listened to Ra's presentation like 3 or 4 times, but I heard different things the most recent time I listened to it. So it takes a while to understand that we can't take it for granted that grass is green.
How do you like visualize 2030?
For me personally, honestly, I want to build aura boxes on land here in Baja, Mexico, where I live, so that we can all have our own little spaces.
Yeah. Like, is everyone just gonna have like little like coves, like, or because since it's gonna be so individualistic, it's like it's hard to discern. It's like, okay, well, what does this mean for me in terms of like, because I have a girlfriend. It's like, do I still get married? It's like I have so many questions regarding just relationships in general.
Yeah, understandably. So individual relating is still going to happen, but it's going to be more okay to have, I mean, literally one night stands, but also kind of more generally, like we're going to make a deal, we're going to do this economic deal right here on the corner right now, and we're never going to see each other again. But
Yeah.
the bigger point is that we can't plan any of this with our minds. This is the difference between the 7-centered human and the 9-centered human. So life is just one decision at a time. And okay, am I going to invite my girlfriend to live with me or not? There's one decision, you know? And are we going to have a 1-year lease? Probably not. Maybe it's more going to be like a 3-month lease. You know, things like that are going to, and it's just one decision at a time as yourself.
But you're saying like survival will be more personal than interrelational.
Absolutely, yeah. This idea I used to have that, hey, you know, we're all going to save the forest together. No.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that involves a lot of like institutions breaking down.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yep.
Yeah. Interesting. Confirms a lot of my suspicions.
Okay, well, not surprising coming from a sleeping phoenix. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, you're wired for this time.
I'm ready.
And being you, just being you is going to be the most you can expect that you can do. But that frequency, and especially, okay, you're a manifesting generator, we need generators to be real generators. Nobody is helped if generators are trying to be manifestors. Nobody.
Yeah.
But we are all helped if generators are really paying attention to their authority. Like, and this is so sensitive for me now. I can't even stand to be in a room full of American generators anymore because they're all frustrated and trying to do stuff. And in contrast, when I'm around a good generator frequency that's like waiting for a response, then I can ask them a question and they give me an answer and I accept it like, oh, great, that's your answer. I don't question it. I can tell that that's your frequency and I can't make you do anything you don't want to do, and that's wonderful. But if you say yes and it's really coming from your sacral, then it's awesome. So we need generators to be generators. Yeah.
What's the easiest way to convey this information without freaking people out?
I just tried. It's not for everyone. You know, it's not for everyone. Most people don't want to know that. Most people want to understand that if they keep, voting Democrat or voting Republican, or they keep giving money to Greenpeace, or if they just keep doing the same stuff and talking about how bad the other people are, that they're somehow going to recover some kind of utopia that we had 10 years ago or something, but we're not. So those people just aren't going to hear it. That's part of why I said this is for newbies and for listeners. If you can hear me, this message is for you. If you don't like my voice, it's not for you. And I don't freaking care. I can just say what comes out of me and then let it go. Because I'm not trying to save the world anymore. I did that. I gave up all that life force energy for so long trying to save people, and now I'm not trying.
So to recap, just encouraging people to be their authentic selves. That's what we need in the world.
Yeah, and I authentic, yes, but that word, and I'm really careful on language, right? So I'm a word nerd, but authentic has this whole connotation within the new age and within, self-help. I wouldn't use the word authentic. I would say live your type, live by your authority, or something like that, because what people didn't know before human design was that a projector is a really different thing than a generator. So, being an authentic sounds so general. Be your type. And that's not necessarily easy.
True.
Especially at first, it seems really disabling. And by the way, my own experiment of being a manifester has been seemingly disabling, because I'm like, wait a minute, I don't have all that power I used to have. I'm like, I climbed those mountains and I sailed across this ocean and I did this and that. Well, frick, I did it with generators, like amplifying them, and actually deconditioning to figure out what's really my real energy has been seemingly disabling. But now I can trust myself, and I can trust a generator. I can trust that I can hear a good generator frequency and know who can be a real ally of mine. But I couldn't have done that if I didn't separate from the generators and live alone and clean myself up so that I could hear it.
Awesome. Does anyone else have any other questions for Isa or feedback on the topic in general?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, so it sounds, I think a little bit of it sounds like doom and gloom in some sort of way. But I want to think about it differently. Is it meant to be kind of a breakdown in humanity and society, like permanently in a way, or is it just like a shift in like where we're going and how we're going to be, and that's just like so different from where we are now that it's hard to imagine things being that different and that being a successful way of living? Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does make sense. It's a good question, and it's more the latter. So think about human evolution. Okay, think about Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal. Okay, they didn't wear clothes. They didn't have tools. They didn't have the kind of consciousness that we have now. So humans have evolved to where we are, but there's over 1,000 more years of human evolution coming. But what's the evolution is going into with the Raves, there's something beautiful to be said about what the Raves are. The Raves are going to be able to communicate with each other in a way that we can't. And this has to do with the evolution of the solar plexus. The solar plexus is the most recent awareness center. Moniste, for example, has solar plexus authority. So what is solar plexus authority? It says you got to wait to really get all the information over time. So her depth of awareness over time is way more advanced than my splenic awareness in the now, right? I know now, I know now, I know now. Just like my dog, my awareness is like my dog's. It's now, it's now, it's now. But Moniste is deeper because she takes time, okay? Think about the kind of beauty that comes out of emotional angst, and the darkness of the emotional thing, right? That's what we call that humanity, right? My dog can't do that. So the Raves are another evolutionary step towards that spirit consciousness. This is what we can call it. Right now, it's a very young spirit. It's a potential for spirit consciousness. But the Raves are going to be able to communicate with each other and share information and that we can't even understand, but only with each other. So it's kind of like humans are going to be, or these raves are going to be kind of more together in a way that we don't understand, because they won't even be using words to communicate with each other. So from our eyes, that looks messed up because we're like, we can't talk. But they're going to be communicating like beyond talking. And they're going to coexist with humans. So there's going to be humans that talk normally like us and have 9 centers. And then there's going to be these raves that, I mean, are we going to kill them? Are we going to have a war with them? Are we going to live side by side in different, no idea. But it's.
By raves, do you mean like, they're like, how are, is it because of technology or I don't know? Like, my other thought is like building skills and tribes is kind of the way through.
Well, that's what we've been doing for the past 400 years is skills and tribes. That's why we have hospitals and Ducatis and all these awesome things, you know,
Right.
because we had that, but that's going away. That's not going to be as important. And by the way, even what the raves eat is not really going to be the same.
And those are going to come into play when?
As far as we know, they'll start being born in 9 months after February 2027.
So they'll be like sort of, we'll initially consider them like autistic, and then they'll sort of integrate somehow, hopefully, or we'll go to war. That's wild.
Yeah, and the word integration was never said by Ra. No, like most likely institutionalized, and who knows? I mean, how dark things might get in the future. Maybe they'll be killed. You know, maybe there'll be a cult of people saying, you know, there's some, you know, the devil is here to make our babies messed up. You know, who knows? Who knows? I don't know. I don't know.
Hey,
what has happened in the past?
Alex, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Oh, go ahead.
What has happened in the past? Sorry, go ahead. Whoever was talking.
I'm going to point to Alex. Go ahead. I've got the reflectors. Okay. Got my attention.
My ADD took over. I forgot what I was going to say.
Come back. We've got more time. No worries.
Okay, I was just going to say, Isa, in the chat, Jen was saying she has an undefined solar plexus, but with feeling cognition.
Mm-hmm.
Just wanted to call attention to that comment.
Yeah. Is there Jen, do you want to say more about that? I also have an undefined solar plexus and touch cognition, same binary. Is there a specific question you want to ask Jen about that?
Well, you were kind of, can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. Because you were kind of talking about, because I've heard like those of us, even if we have an undefined or open solar plexus, those of us with feeling cognition still kind of carry at least partial or some of the solar plexus mutation.
Absolutely.
So.
I don't know about like nobody who's alive right now, nobody's solar plexus is going to mutate from where we are right now. It's just some that are born in the future are going to carry a mutation. Does that make sense? Did it answer your question?
Yeah, I see that's your understanding. I've heard other people say different, and I guess it's kind of more I don't know, yeah, I'm not quite sure if I have a question.
You might be speaking to something that I've heard, which is that people like you and me, we have our cognition, that's our design, sun, earth, the color under Oh, I'm sorry. That's our tone under our design sun earth. So that's kind of like our deepest level of knowing and our unique knowing. So we're both in the solar plexus binary. So
Yeah.
we don't know what we know right away. But my understanding is that our kind of knowing is more similar to what the Rave's kind of knowing is going to be like. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for that. That's what I think that's where I was kind of trying to go.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions about?
Yeah, I remembered what I was gonna
Oh,
ask
awesome.
originally.
Uh-huh.
With these mutations that have happened over time, to all of us, and how our actual charts have like moved and things like that. What has happened in the past? Have like the people that have mutated, like the Raves that we're going to see, have they been like massacred or like attacked, or have they like flourished and taken over, or does it really just depend on the time period and how those peoples come into existence?
Okay, yeah, cool question. I don't know the answer because the only other major genetic mutation that I am aware of that we have history on is 1781. That's when projectors came in. Okay, so you can say projectors, they are different, but they've pretended like they're generators, and those that pretended like they're generators have burnt out. Like they don't get along as well as generators in a generator world. So nobody's like, hurting projectors. And especially if you're a female projector and you're welcome, you're willing to be taken care of, then that's worked out well for some female projectors. But if you're a male projector and you're like, yeah, I don't have the energy to work and chop down trees and stuff, then it didn't work so well. And then they're like nerdy, right? So like these outcast kind of nerdy projector types, we haven't like hurt them, but in some cultures, I would say projectors don't get a good trip. And so I don't have any history like what you're talking about, but the last one was that one.
My
Gotcha.
mom and my grandpa are projectors. They seem to do well in this zone. But it's interesting that you say 1781, because America was created in 1776. So, and like we're going through in Western astrology our Pluto return, where it's like Pluto's death and rebirth and transformation. So it doesn't seem coincidental that we're about to go through another death and rebirth. And yeah, again, the writing seems to be on the wall. This was really interesting. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for chiming in.
Awesome. If you do have any questions after we wrap this up, you will have the recording, and you can definitely reach out to me or to Isa. Isa, I just was hoping that you would take another minute to talk about your Living Your Design course that you offer.
Sure.
Anyone
I'm sorry, was that a ask for questions? Mm-hmm.
I'm wondering if you want to just like say a little bit more about the Living Your Design course itself,
Sure.
and see if anyone has questions as well.
Okay. So Living Your Design is a course that is from the International Human Design School. That's what I got certified to teach. And it teaches the basic mechanics. It's like Human Design 101 about what those 9 centers are, what definition is, what authority is, and how to experiment with all of that. And I took it later in my in my human design experiment. I wish I had taken it a lot earlier. Because for me, I got lost in the details of human design stuff like death, dying, and Bardo, and entities and aliens and all this amazing knowledge, but I wasn't looking at my own chart. And what I showed you at the beginning, where I got to finally look at my parents' charts and my ex-husband's chart and see what was I being conditioned by, I didn't even know to look for that kind of stuff before I took LYD. So it's the 101. It's the foundational information, and it's all that you need to really start your experiment and to understand what it means to experiment with your design. So we meet weekly, And, it's a Zoom classroom and the recordings are available and you don't have to show up live. And it is also a foundational course for the International Human Design School. If you want to yourself become a guide or an analyst, you have to start with LYD. So I've taught this basically for the last year and a half, and I've taught different groups, different types and different groups. This is the first time I'm letting all the types into one classroom. So a little bit like today. Yeah.
Awesome.
And it pays to sign up early. But I'm also flexible about payment plans because that's been offered to me in the past for different things like this. And so you'll just want to email me about that if that's a hanging point for you. Any questions about LYD? I would say one of the other reasons to take it is so that you can become a wise consumer of human design. There's so much garbage, especially on Facebook and Instagram, which I spend plenty of time on Facebook. I'm not saying it's bad, but what I am saying is that if you think that this is a mechanical system, then learn it from somebody who teaches it that way. Like if I was going to learn scuba diving, I would go to a certified scuba diving instructor because my life depends on it, learning how to use that equipment well. But if I was learning to ride a bike, I don't need a certified teacher for that. So this is the kind of thing I think, find a guide that you want to listen to. It might not be me. The International Human Design School has lots and lots of guides, all types, all styles, and make that investment in your own experiment.
I think Alec will agree. It's even worse with Western astrology.
Oh yeah, well, I could do a whole nother presentation for you all about Western astrology sometime.
Adam is also an expert in that area, so.
Okay.
But okay, well, thank you again, Isa. And then
You're
for
welcome.
the group, I would just say that I've been calling these types of presentations like pop-up presentations, where I invite people that I've met, in different groups to share interesting knowledge. And I hope you enjoy it. I think the topics are interesting. I hope you do too. I'm totally open to feedback. And I'm, like I said in the beginning, I'm learning along with you. So hope that this is a valuable use of your time. And then I also wanted to just throw out there that I did post in the Facebook group recently that we are approaching the 1-year birthday of Human Design Wisconsin, which I'm really excited about. So I've been trying to plan some fun things for the group. In addition to today's presentation, there's some other things coming up that you might want to watch for if you haven't seen already. So on Monday at 6 Central, my daughter Tiana and I will be talking about our experience at the High Desert Human Design Conference last week in Santa Fe. That was a really great learning experience, and we'd like to share some of that with you and some of the information we learned and some contacts and resources and things like that. So if you're available at 6 on Monday, we'll be live streaming that. If you're not available then, you can watch it later. But I can say that Tiana and I both did really enjoy our time there and plan to go back next year. And we're hoping that maybe some other people from the group would like to join us. And then we have our monthly Human Design Wisconsin meeting, which will be virtual in August because of schedule. People's schedules are very, very busy in the summer months. So it's hard to find the time for us to meet in person in August. But we do have our next virtual meeting on Wednesday, August 17th. That one will be at 6 o'clock, and the topic is going to be variables. It's going to be pretty basic, but maybe with a little bit of intermediate information. And for those of you that are new to human design, variables are the 4 arrows on the top of your chart that either point left or right. So we'll be talking about that. Amanda and I will be presenting that. We're excited for that opportunity. We're hoping to resume in-person monthly networking meetings in September. So watch for more to come on that. And then I also recently shared the first ever Human Design Wisconsin logo on our site. So I'm excited about that. It's something that I've been wanting for a while. And that's the first iteration of it. And I have plans to do things with that, some of which might be like having either real like business cards, or you could use it as a virtual card to share with people. It'll have some information about what the group is and what we do and how to contact us and things like that. Maybe even some fun things with merchandise. I've met some people, especially last week at the High Desert Human Design Conference, that make HD merchandise, and they're willing to do different designs and things like that. So maybe in the future we can use our HDW logo for those types of things. So lots of exciting stuff happening. I think the group has been great over this past year, and I'm looking forward to moving into our second year. Thank you all for being a part of it. Really appreciate it.
Congratulations, Moniste, being the manifestor that you are in gathering people and having an impact this way. Thanks for calling me out to do this. Yeah, good job, you guys.
You're welcome. Thank you all. So I think that with that, we'll wrap it up. Thanks all for attending. Have a good rest of your day.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
Let's do it that way. Okay. Ciao, ciao.
Bye.
End broadcast. And we